in the last video I made about ancient Greece, some of you guys were very impressed by the pickup lines that I included in there, especially Matteo and Chelsea. They both seemed to have a really positive reaction to it. So, in the spirit of giving you guys more pickup lines that you can use when you're older, I think that it might be worth the time for me to drop maybe one or two more. So this is a Harry Potter pickup line that I like to use. You say, "Hey, is this the Hogwarts Express? Because I feel like we're heading somewhere magical." Mary Angela, you're a Harry Potter fan. You could use that one. Or, you just like rub your eyes like this. You're like, something must be wrong with my eyes because I can't take them off of you. Oh, great. Pickup lines are just so awesome. All right. Greek geography. So in the last video, we did slides 1 through 4, and we talked about the fact that Greece is in the Mediterranean world, aka the Aegean world. We talked about the Mediterranean Sea, the Ionian Sea, the Aegean Sea. We talked about the fact that Greece is very mountainous and rocky, and it's really hard to get from point A to point B. So even if you're only a few miles away from your destination, it could be like a day-long journey to get there, because you either have to go through mountains to get there, or you have to go around the mountains, or oftentimes what people just did is they hopped in a ship and then they sailed around the edge of the peninsula, or they sailed through a little inlet to get to their destination. All right. So now we're going to talk about more aspects of Greek geography. So I want to talk for a moment about where Greece is located. So if you look at this map right here of the Mediterranean Sea on slide 4, you can see Greece is right here. Right? This whole thing is the Mediterranean Sea. And then we have the Ionian and Aegean Seas next to it. All right. Down here, we have the island of Crete. This is Asia Minor. Now, this western edge of Asia Minor, which is modern-day Turkey, used to have a lot of Greek city-states, right? So Greece wasn't just this peninsula here. It also included land right here. It included all the islands here. At one point, it included the island of Crete and a few islands over here. All right. But overall, Greece is still a very small area of land. But it became such an important part of Western culture. Why is that? Well, one reason is because of its geographic location. Greece is located in between Europe, Africa, and Asia. So if I'm in Asia and I need to get to Europe, there's a good chance that I'm going to go through Greece, right? Or if I'm going to meet someone from Europe to do trade, a good meeting point for us will be in Greece. Likewise, if I'm traveling from Africa to Asia, I'm going to have to travel through Greece, or vice versa. Right? Oftentimes, people from certain parts of Africa, like the eastern parts around Egypt is over here, if they want to get to Asia or Europe, Greece is a good stopping point for them along the journey, right? So Greece is at the intersection of several major civilizations. And because of that, it gets exposed to a lot of commerce and a lot of culture. Greece was also located near two major ancient civilizations. One of them is the Persian Empire, which is going to be located over here. And the other one is going to be the Roman Empire, which is going to be located here in Italy. And Greece is in between these two major empires. The Roman Empire and the Persian Empire at different times are both the most powerful empires in the entire world. And Greece is right smack dab in the middle of them. So Greece's geography is a big, big reason that it became such an important point, such an important place for development in the ancient world. Okay, To the south of Greece, we have an island called Crete. Now, this island down here called Crete was the home of the first European civilization, right? And this civilization was called the Minoan civilization, the Minoans. Now, the Minoans were really good trade partners for Greece. So actually, Greece and Crete were separate for a while, and then Greece absorbed Crete, and then Crete became independent of Greece again. So the Minoans and the Greeks were very good trade partners. However, they were also enemies at a certain point, and we know this because there is a myth about one point in Greek history when Minos, who is the king of the Minoans, is a villain, right? And King Minos requires Greek city-states to pay him tribute in exchange for peace, right? So at this point, Minos is more powerful than the Greek city-states, and in order to have peace, Minos required that Greek ships send children to Greece to be fed to this mythical monster called the Minotaur. And I'm not going to talk about the myth, but there is a famous Greek myth about defeating the Minotaur. A Greek hero defeats the Minotaur. All right. About 600 years after first trading with Greece, though, mysteriously the Minoan civilization vanishes. This could be because of a volcano or earthquakes. Right? It could be war. We don't really know. All right. We're going to talk now about the Mediterranean climate and what impact that had on Greece. All right. So Greece has a Mediterranean climate. This means that the winters are very mild, although sometimes they can be pretty rainy. The summers are very hot and very dry. Greece is also located near the ocean, however, and when you go to the beach, what do you notice about being by the beach? Sometimes it gets very foggy even during the middle of the day, right? So because it's so close to the ocean, there's a lot of cold ocean currents that blow through Greece, and there's fog that travels over Greece, which is very common, right? Flooding in the winter is very dangerous because Greece is basically entirely rocky terrain. So there's no like rivers or lakes for rainwater to flow into. So instead, it just washes over the rocks in the mountains, and this can cause a lot of floods. So flooding is very dangerous in Greece. So when you combine the fog and the floods in the winter and the really hot, really dry summers, right, this limits the ability of Greek farmers to grow certain kinds of crops. Right? So because of the floods, you have to have crops that have really, really deep roots that can hold on to the soil and survive the floods. But because the summers are really hot and dry, you have to have crops that don't need a lot of water. So you can't grow things that have really shallow roots like rice and corn and potatoes and things like that. But you can't grow things like wheat, which have deep roots but require a lot of water. So instead, you have to practice crop selection to grow other kinds of crops, right? So these would be things that grow on vines and trees. Right? So these would be grapes, olives, figs, dates, not dates like what I go on with Scarlet Witch, but dates as in the food, right? Olive oil and wine become a very important part of what Greece produces, because right? They grow a lot of grapes, so they can make wine. They grow a lot of olives, so they can make olive oil. Many of these vines and trees only grow on hilltops and mountainsides. So grazing animals in Greece have to be really good climbers. So Greece has a lot of goats, for example. Right? Goats are very common in Greece. Cows, not so much. Cows are not good at climbing. Goats are. So you have a lot of goat milk. You have goat meat. You have goat cheese. Same thing with sheep. Right? Many Greeks became herdsmen for this reason. right? Because there's a lot of natural wildlife that's good at climbing and surviving on these like really short, dry plants and the fruits and leaves on trees, things like that. All right, so because of Greece's rocky terrain, because of the climate, it's very, very difficult for farmers to produce things like bread. In fact, less than 25% of all of Greece's land can actually be used for farming. That's how rocky it is. And because they can't grow grain, which is the most important food crop for human beings, that means they can't have bread. So they had to rely on the sea for natural resources, right? So for fish and for other things that the sea produces. But in order to get bread, they had to rely on trade with places like Egypt and parts of Europe, right? So the sea was really important, not only because it was a natural boundary, but also because of its natural resources and because it provided trading routes for the Greeks. All right, so here on slide 7, you can see just how rocky and mountainous Greece is. Right? Pretty much the entire mainland of the Greek peninsula is covered in mountains and hills. These form natural boundaries between the city-states and the kingdoms that pop up in Greece's valleys. So Greek settlements, even though they were close together, they were independent of each other because it's really hard to get from point A to point B. Right? Mary Angela just commented on my last video. Wait till she sees this one. All right. So it made it really difficult for any kingdom or city-state to conquer its neighbors because it's really hard to move a mountain through this, to move an army through the mountains. So that's another reason they were independent. Greece was never united as a single country either. This is an important thing to understand about Greece. So other civilizations had an emperor that kind of controlled the entire civilization. Greece didn't have anything like that. Greece had different city-states that often went to war with each other, but only in a limited way because of this really rocky mountainous terrain, right? You couldn't really move like a huge army to invade a city-state. So they were independent city-states. They did form alliances here and there. They did war with each other here and there. They traded a lot with each other. Basically, the best way to get to a neighboring city-state was to sail there by ship. So if you were going to go to war, you would have to put your army on a ship and sail them over there. So because of this, a lot of these Greek city-states developed their own unique cultures, religious beliefs, political systems. What's kind of interesting about Greece is that they believed that their climate made them better than other people. So Greece is not too hot and not too cold, right? Kind of like that Goldilocks story. So they thought that their climate was just right and it made them superior to other civilizations, right? They thought this balance between hot and cold and wet and dry made them better energized, more intelligent, and more organized than other societies. Of course, the irony of it is that's a really stupid thing to think. Climate doesn't control intelligence, but that's why there's so many dumb people in California. Okay, we're going to stop there. Tomorrow we'll pick up with Greek city-states. Have a nice day.